Now that we have the ability to add a city to our application, we also want to implement the ability to delete one. So what we're going to be doing here is when you click on this pencil icon, it is going to toggle the edit mode, which will display a delete trash can or a trash can here in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, if you select that or you click on that trash can while edit mode is active, it'll remove that city from our application here. And then if you click on the edit icon once more, it'll turn off the edit mode and the trash cans will no longer be visible. So let's head over to our Vue application or our Vue project and get started. So we're going to begin with the front end of things to just create the actual delete icon. So inside of our city component here, inside of the city class, I'm going to paste in the icon we're going to be using for this from our Font Awesome library. I also gave it a class of edit and the ref attribute of edit as well. Now I'm also going to paste in the styling for this inside of our city class here inside of the style tags, and it's going to give it the appearance of a half circle at the very top, I guess you can call this. I thought the design was pretty cool. So we're achieving this with a simple border radius on the top right, a border of 10 pixels solid around the whole thing, and then like I said, the border radius is giving us this result of the half circle. And we are positioning this absolute to the bottom left hand corner, and that's it. Yeah, it's some pretty simple styling. Okay, so currently you can see that these are visible all the time, and we don't want that. I think it makes for a bad user experience. So what we want to do is hide these and only show them if the user clicks on this navigation button, which then will toggle the edit mode and then display these. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to create a new data value here in our app.vue, and we're going to set this equal to edit and give it a Boolean value, or we're going to set it to null. All right. So what we want to do now is give the ability for this edit property to be used here on our city component. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to head over to our app here, and inside the router view we want to do a vbind. So we're going to say vbind and say edit, and we want to set this equal to edit. Okay, now since we are nesting or using the city component within the add city component, we actually have to pass this data through here first. So we can say inside of the props we want to accept edit, and then we can actually take this value here and then bind it to this component of city. So vbind, and we're going to say edit, and we're going to set this equal to edit. So now we can have the ability to use it inside of this component. So once again, we're going to have to import this in the props and say edit. So what we're going to say is if this is true, show this trash icon. So we can do that by saying v if and setting this equal to edit. Okay, so now that we have this implemented, if we head over to application, we should no longer see the trash cans because we have set that value to null. So if we set this to true, we should see now we have these trash cans displayed. All right, so let's set this back to null for now. So let's add the ability for a user to click on the edit icon and for this to happen all through the interface of our application here. So what we want to do is head over to our navigation, and on the actual edit icon we want to pass a click here, and we're going to say edit cities. So when we click on this, it's going to run the function edit cities. So let's head over to our methods here, and we'll copy this down and open this up. So all we're going to do is what we did with our add city is we want to emit a custom event here. So we're going to say emit, and then we're going to call this edit city. Okay, so if we head back over to our app.vue, we can listen for this custom event by saying, we'll just copy this one again to save some time. So we're going to paste that. We want to say v on, and the name we gave was edit city, and then we want to toggle edits. That'll be the function we're going to call here in our methods. So let's go ahead and close up this function, and right below the toggle modal we'll create toggle edit, and we're going to say this dot edit equals the opposite this dot edit. Okay, so now if we head over to our application, if we refresh it, we should be able to click on this and then display and hide the trash cans. Okay, so the front end is all complete. We can now click on this and we can display them, but if we click on one of them, nothing happens. So what we need to do now is communicate with our Cloud Firestore, and when we receive a click on here, we need to go ahead and reach out to our collection and remove that item. Let's begin inside of our city component where we have our trash icon. So whenever we click on this icon, we want to run a function that's going to reach out to our Firestore collection and then delete the current city that we click the delete button on. Okay, so to begin, let's go ahead and start by passing a click here, and we want to run the function of removed city each time we click on this icon. Okay, now we don't have our methods created in this component yet, so let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to say methods, and we want to open this up, and we're going to say remove city, and there we go. Now, since we're going to be using our Firestore collection, we need to import that into this component. So we're going to say import db from, and then let's get out of this folder and look for Firebase and Firebase init. Okay, so what we need to do is to delete the current city. We need to first get the ID of that city from our Firestore collection. All right, so what I want to do is I want to create a data here. We don't have any data, so let's open this up, and we're going to say return, and then I want to create the data value of ID and set this equal to null. So what we need to do is we need to reach out to our Firestore collection first and get the ID, which is actually, let me see here, this right here. So right now we don't have a reference to this ID inside of this component, so that's what we're going to do first. Now once we get that ID from our Firestore collection, we can run the method to delete that from our application. Okay, so let's go ahead and say in our remove city function, we want to first reach out to our database with a collection of cities, and I forgot the quotes. Now we want to only return the city from our collection that is equal to the city that is currently in this component. So what we can say is we can use the .where method, which accepts 3 parameters. Now the first one is the field inside of the collection item we want to search for. So that's going to be this city field we want to look for. So we can pass the first parameter, city. Now the second parameter is what you want, or what you're going to be searching for. Are you looking for something less than or equal to, less than? In our case, we want to look for the city, which is going to be equal to the city that we have right here in our current component. So then for our third parameter, we actually want to pass that city name. Now we're going to be using some interpolation here to reference, let's see here, to reference our city that we have in this prop. So we're going to say this dot city dot city. All right, so this will give us a reference to this city inside of our collection. So it's going to search through all these and look at this field right here, and it's going to look for the one that's equal to the current one that is in our component. Okay, now after this we want to run a get, and that'll go ahead and get all the items that match. So we're only going to be getting 1, so we still need to run this anyways. Now what we want to do after this is run a .then method, and we want to run the parameter we're going to say is docs, and then we're going to run a callback here, and we want to say docs.for each. We're going to pass the parameter of doc and one more callback, and then we want to say this .id, which is referring to the ID data value we have up here, and we want to set this equal to the doc.id. Okay, so now if we were to, let's see here, after this .then method, we can say .then. Let's just go ahead and I'll run a callback here, and let's say, let's console this to the log, or log it to the console. I always said that backwards. And we're going to say this .id. So now if I were to come over to our weather app here and I refresh this, So when we log this to the console, if I were to click this right here and I delete a city, we should receive that ID from our .then method right here. So now that we have this ID, what we can do is simply say db.collection, and we want to reference cities, and we want to say doc, and then we're going to pass it this.id because we want to reference a doc that matches this ID, and then we want to simply delete it, which we can then pass it the delete method. All right, so if we save this and we go back to our component or our application here, if I refresh it, all the cities are going to be here right now. Okay, so if we want to edit some cities and we wanted to delete, let's say, San Diego. So you can see nothing's happened right now, but if I go to our weather app here, you can see now we only have 5, and if I refresh this, you'll see that San Diego is now gone. So we're able to successfully delete a city from our application. Now the one problem is it's not happening in real time, so let's go ahead and fix that. So in our app.view, inside of our getCityWeather function, I once again am going to come here in our for each loop, and I want to console.log the doc.type. All right, so if we now come over to our application and once again try to delete a city, let's just go ahead and delete Miami. You'll see that now when we delete Miami, it doesn't get removed here, but you can see we have the removed value returned from our console right here from what we logged out. So what we want to do is we're going to remove this, and now we want to pass another condition. So what we want to say is after this else if, we want to then pass another else if, saying else if doc.type is equal to removed, then perform this inside of this code block. Now what we want to do is simply a filter of the current city that's being passed, and we want to remove it from our cities array. So what that's going to look like is we're going to say this dot cities is equal to this dot cities dot filter, and we're going to pass it the param of city, and then an arrow for a callback function here, and we want to say city dot city, which is not equal to the doc dot data dot city. So what this is going to do is when the type is removed, it's going to go through our cities array and set it equal to this filter method, which is going to filter out the current city that is being removed and then return this new array without that city. So when we go back to our application here now, if I refresh this and we want to remove a city, so if I hit the edit button up here and we want to get rid of Dallas, now it'll happen in real time. Lastly, there is still one thing I do want to fix with our actual ability to remove cities. So currently, if you select the pencil icon, our delete icons will appear here, but I want to add an indication that the edit mode is currently on by changing the color of the icon. So let's go ahead and fix that. Now what we're going to do inside of our navigation here, first off, I want to assign a ref value to our edit cities icon here. So we're going to say ref, and this is going to simply say edit and cities, if I can spell edit cities. All right. Now inside of our edit cities function here, we're going to say this dot $refs dot edit cities, and we want to toggle, or we want to call the, let's see, class list property, and we want to do the toggle method here, and we want to toggle the class of edit active. All right, so whenever we click on this icon, the class edit active will be toggled on and off. Now we haven't created that class just yet. Now where we're going to do that is we can just come inside our navigation here and we'll say edit active, and what we're going to set this to is a color of an RGBA, and we want to remove this. I don't know why it auto generates that. I never want that. And let's go ahead and add that back on here, and the color we're going to be adding has a value of 210, 75 and 75, and we're actually not going to be passing it an opacity, so I'll just leave it as 1. All right, so now if we click on our navigation here of the pencil icon, you should see that it now turns this nice red color, which is a great indication that we are currently in the edit mode to remove our cities.